Barron Trump had never liked the spotlight. Unlike his father, President Donald J. Trump, Barron kept his life as low profile as possible even as the nation buzzed with attention around the White House. Now 19 and attending a prestigious university in Washington, D.C., he had grown tall, an impressive 6 feet 7 inches to be exact, but remained soft-spoken, thoughtful, and reserved. He had inherited his mother Melania's elegance and his father's determination. But he was different, calm under pressure, unshakably disciplined, and fiercely independent. Many didn't realize just how intelligent and strategic Barron truly was. He spoke 5 languages, studied philosophy and economics, and practiced mixed martial arts every morning before class. But none of that mattered to the group of entitled students who saw him as nothing more than the president's kid. It started subtly. Snide remarks. Eye rolls in class. Whispers behind his back. Professors who made politically charged comments in lectures while glancing in his direction. He ignored it. He'd been taught from a young age to carry himself with dignity. But things escalated quickly. One morning, as he walked into the student union, he found his locker defaced with red paint. "Dictator's son," it read. He stood in silence, stared at it, and took a deep breath. Cameras started flashing. Of course, someone was recording. He could feel the students' eyes on him, waiting to see if the president's son would explode. But Barron didn't react. He simply took out a handkerchief from his pocket and calmly began wiping the paint off. When it wouldn't come off, he smiled faintly, shut the locker, and walked away. But what he didn't know was that this quiet act of grace would make him the target of something much darker. Behind the scenes, a group of politically obsessed students, led by Max Reynolds, the arrogant son of a famous Hollywood producer, had made it their mission to humble Barron. Max was loud, brash, and a social media darling with thousands of followers. He hated everything the Trump family stood for and bragged openly that he'd take down Barron Trump before finals. His gang of enablers cheered him on. They started by spreading fake rumors online that Barron had cheated on an exam, that he was getting special treatment because of his name, that he was a white nationalist in disguise. None of it was true, but that didn't stop the hashtags from trending. And still, Barron said nothing. But it didn't stop there. One afternoon, while Barron was heading to the gym, Max and his goons cornered him in the underground parking garage. "Look who it is," Max sneered, blocking his path. "Little Donnie's golden boy." Barron didn't flinch. "You need to move." Max chuckled. "Or what? You'll sue me like your daddy does? Or build a wall between us?" Laughter erupted among his friends. They stepped closer, surrounding him. Max pushed him hard. Barron stumbled back but didn't fall. He looked Max dead in the eye. "You don't want to do this." "Oh, I do," Max growled and shoved him again, this time harder. In a flash, Barron dropped his gym bag, ducked a punch, and swept Max's legs out from under him with a clean, disciplined move. Max hit the ground like a sack of bricks. "Silence. Anyone else?" Barron said, his voice calm, his eyes locked. The other students backed off instantly. No one had expected that. Barron didn't gloat. He picked up his bag, looked at Max groaning on the floor, and walked away like nothing had happened. But word spread fast. Within 24 hours, security footage was leaked. Students across the university couldn't believe what they saw: Barron Trump, calm, composed, and taking down the most arrogant bully on campus in less than 5 seconds. The footage went viral. Conservative and liberal media alike began to buzz. But this wasn't the end. It was only the beginning. Because now the whole country was watching. By the next morning, the clip had reached nearly 10 million views. It was trending on X, Instagram, TikTok, and every political commentary channel on YouTube. The hashtags were explosive. Barron fights back. Calm like Trump. Unstoppable Barron. Fox News ran the headline. Barron Trump shocks college bullies, video goes viral. Even CNN couldn't help but admit. The president's son displays composure in the face of provocation. Barron tried to stay under the radar, but the media frenzy made that impossible. While reporters swarmed the campus, professors suddenly grew polite. Even students who had previously mocked him now nodded respectfully as he walked by. But for Barron, the fame meant little. He wasn't proud of what happened. He had only defended himself. He didn't want to be known for a fight. He wanted to be known for ideas, innovation, and a vision for the future. If only people cared more about that than drama. But Max Reynolds didn't fade quietly. Max had bruises physically and, more importantly, on his ego. His father, media mogul Brent Reynolds, had seen the video and wasn't happy. "You just got embarrassed in front of the nation," Brent hissed in private. "And by a Trump." Max seethed. He began working with a group of activist students to spin a different story that Barron was dangerous, a threat to student safety, and unhinged. A petition began circulating to have Barron suspended from the university pending investigation. But it didn't gain much traction. Too many people had seen the video. They knew the truth. Still, Max wasn't done. One evening, Barron was invited to speak at a closed-door campus economics club meeting. The room was filled with a mix of students, some curious, others skeptical, and a few with phones discreetly recording. Barron stood at the front in a navy suit, confident but composed. "I didn't come here to fight," he began, "and I don't want to be defined by a single moment caught on camera." One evening, Barron was invited to speak at a closed-door campus economics club meeting. The room was filled with a mix of students, some curious, others skeptical, and a few with phones discreetly recording. Barron stood at the front in a navy suit, confident but composed. "I didn't come here to fight," he began, "and I don't want to be defined by a single moment caught on camera. I want to be defined by the choices I make every day, the choice to listen, to learn, to challenge ideas, and to build." There was a pause. Even those who disagreed with his politics found themselves nodding. He continued, "You don't have to like my father. You don't even have to like me. But if you believe in fairness and freedom, then you should stand against bullying no matter who it targets." The room was silent. Then, slowly, applause built. By the end of the night, a new hashtag was trending. Respect Barron, but Max was planning something bigger. In a secret group chat, Max and a few radical activists plotted a public confrontation. The idea? Ambush Barron on the university quad with a surprise protest. Film it. Provoke him. Humiliate him. The goal was to finally trigger him into saying or doing something that could be used to get him expelled, or worse, destroy his public image. But they underestimated one thing: Barron had friends too. Among them was Caleb, a student veteran who had served in Afghanistan and now studied law. He'd seen how Barron carried himself under pressure and respected him deeply. Another was Riley, a tech-savvy junior who had overheard whispers about the protest plan on a Discord server and tipped Barron off. "Barron," she said, "they're planning something. It's not just another protest. They're coming for you big time." Barron simply nodded. "Then I'll be ready." The next day was unusually warm for October. The quad was full of students, media vans, and cameras. Barron was walking back from a lecture when it happened. Max and his group jumped up from the crowd, holding signs, chanting insults, and rushing toward him with phones out, live streams active. "Nazi sympathizer. Racist elite. Fascist son." The mob surrounded him. Barron stood still. Calm. Silent. Max shoved a megaphone in his face. "Tell the world why your father caged children, Barron. Tell us how it feels to be a pawn of evil." The crowd gasped. Barron didn't flinch. He took the megaphone gently from Max's hand, turned to the cameras, and said clearly, "I don't respond to hate with hate. I respond with facts, discipline, and strength. If you want a debate, schedule one. If you want a brawl, you won't like the outcome." Then he handed the megaphone back and walked away. The video shattered the internet. Even those who once mocked him couldn't help but admire his poise. He didn't just survive the ambush. He mastered it. But Max? Max's face was frozen on every news outlet, red, shaken, defeated. Even his own followers began to turn on him. He had picked a fight with the wrong man. Barron Trump wasn't just the president's son anymore. He was becoming something else entirely. In the days following the quad ambush, something unexpected began to happen. Barron's social media presence, once non-existent, skyrocketed. Though he wasn't the one posting, clips of his composed responses were being turned into inspirational edits shared across every corner of the internet. Some were even set to epic orchestral music with titles like "The Calm Before the Storm, Barron Trump's Rise." "Unshaken. Unbroken. Unstoppable." Young people across the country, especially those tired of the chaos and division, began to see Barron as more than just a political figure. He represented something rare in modern America: restraint with power, discipline with strength, and most of all, principles under pressure. A popular podcaster commented, "You don't have to like the Trumps to respect what Barron is doing here. This is a masterclass in how to handle public pressure, hate, and lies with grace." Suddenly, colleges, civic groups, even international student organizations started sending him invites to speak. He declined most of them. His goal wasn't fame. But one invite caught his attention. It was from a local veterans education fundraiser aimed at helping student veterans cover rising tuition costs. Barron quietly accepted. On the night of the event, the auditorium was packed. Students, professors, veterans, and reporters all filled the room. No Secret Service in sight per his request. Just a podium, a microphone, and Barron standing tall in a fitted black suit. He opened with a quiet smile. "Tonight isn't about me," he said, "and it's not about my last name. It's about men and women who put their lives on the line so we could argue, protest, and even disagree in peace." The audience was dead silent, hanging on every word. Barron continued, "Some people use their voices to spread lies. Others use them to provoke, bully, or manipulate. But real strength, the kind I've learned from veterans and my own family, comes from standing tall when the world tries to knock you down." By the time he finished, the crowd was on their feet. Even his harshest critics couldn't deny it. Barron Trump could lead, but as his influence grew, so did the danger. Max, now publicly disgraced and under academic probation, was unraveling. The protest stunt had backfired so spectacularly that even his own allies had distanced themselves. He'd lost endorsements, social clout, and the respect of his peers. He blamed Barron, and he wanted revenge this time, not just in public. This time, he was going to hit Barron where it hurt. With help from an anonymous hacker in the activist scene, Max acquired access to some internal White House files, not classified but sensitive enough. Old photos of Barron's childhood, training routines, travel logs, a few out-of-context emails. Max had a plan. Leak it all online. Twist the narrative. Claim Barron was a groomed authoritarian training to take power one day. Frame his self-defense as militia behavior. Make it look like the Trump family was preparing a secret dynasty behind the scenes. It was delusional, but in the era of social media, lies traveled fast. Within hours of the leak, conspiracy posts exploded across the internet. Barron Trump's secret military training exposed. Trump dynasty plotting 2028 takeover, Barron in the lead? News outlets scrambled for confirmation. Journalists flooded the White House press room. President Trump, now in his second term, waved off the rumors but stood behind his son. "Barron is his own man," the president said at a press conference. "He's not being groomed for anything. If anything, he's leading by example better than most adults I know." But the damage had been done. Barron was thrust into the global spotlight. And this time, he couldn't stay silent. That night, Barron sat alone on the Lincoln Memorial steps, staring out across the reflecting pool. The city lights shimmered on the water. He pulled out his phone and opened his camera. Not for a selfie. For a message. He looked straight into the lens. "I didn't ask for this attention. I didn't want to be anyone's symbol. But since people are watching, let me say this clearly." He paused, then spoke each word with quiet power. "I believe in this country. I believe in responsibility. I believe in respecting others even when they don't respect you. If that threatens your agenda, maybe the problem isn't me. Maybe it's you." He posted it with no caption. Within minutes, it exploded. Even foreign media began covering it. The Washington Post published an op-ed titled, "Is Barron Trump the future of American leadership?" And Max? The hacker he worked with was caught and confessed everything to avoid prison. Max was expelled, his reputation permanently scorched. Barron had not only survived the ambushes, he had risen above them. Barron never asked for a movement, but somehow one was forming around him. At first, it was just students admiring his calm responses. Then it became working-class families watching his speeches online, sending messages like, "You give me hope for the next generation. Wish more young men carried themselves like you." From there, it snowballed. High school debate clubs began quoting him. Veterans wrote op-eds praising his composure under pressure. Former critics started rethinking their assumptions. Barron wasn't just defending himself anymore, he was shifting minds. And it didn't stop at words. A group of students, inspired by him, launched a campus initiative called Civil Courage, a nonpartisan student organization focused on restoring respectful dialogue, defending free speech, and pushing back against mob mentality. Barron didn't take credit. He didn't even join the board. But he did speak at their first event. "I don't want to be your hero," he told them. "I just want you to be your best self even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard." The event drew over 3,000 people, including professors, parents, and even students who had once opposed him. But not everyone was cheering. In the shadows of Washington, D.C., a few power players, long uncomfortable with the Trump family's influence, started whispering behind closed doors. "Barron is getting too popular. He's not his father. He's polished, clean-cut, and articulate. That makes him even more dangerous." They feared what he represented, a new kind of conservatism, younger, sharper, and untouchable by the usual attacks. He didn't rant. He didn't lash out. He listened, then struck with calm precision. Political strategists in both parties started taking note. Polling data showed a wild surge in favorability for Barron, especially among independents and young men under 30. Someone even leaked an internal memo from a DNC-aligned group. Barron Trump may be the next great political wildcard. If he runs even for local office, it's over. We need to discredit him now or never. The memo went viral. And yet, Barron still refused to play their game. He told his mother Melania, "I'm not running for anything. Not yet. Right now, I just want to finish school, keep my head down, and build things that last." But destiny has a funny way of finding those who don't chase it. A month later, Barron received an unexpected letter in the mail. It wasn't from a political operative or a news outlet or a college dean. It was from a 12-year-old boy in Nebraska named Jeremy. Jeremy had been bullied for stuttering. He had no friends. Every day, kids mocked him, pushed him, filmed him crying, and posted it online. But then he saw Barron's quad video. Then the fundraiser speech. Then the clip at the Lincoln Memorial. In his handwritten note, Jeremy wrote, "They said I was weak. But when I saw how you stood still while they screamed in your face, I thought maybe I could be strong too. I told my bullies to stop. And they did. For the first time, I felt like I wasn't alone." Barron sat on his dorm bed, the letter in his lap. For the first time in months, his stoic expression cracked. He felt it in his chest, the real reason all this was happening. Not for politics. Not for revenge. For kids like Jeremy. So Barron wrote back. He included a short note and a signed photo, not a PR move, just something personal. He wrote, "Jeremy, you were strong. You were always strong. You just needed to believe it. Keep standing tall. Keep speaking up. The world needs more fighters like you. Barron." The letter went viral again. Jeremy's school gave him a standing ovation when he read it aloud. Local news picked up the story. Parents cried watching the footage. Commentators said, "This is what leadership looks like in its purest form." And across America, people started to ask a new question. Is this just the beginning for Barron Trump? Absolutely. Here's the final chapter. It had been a year since the quad ambush. A year since the first viral clip, the wave of support, the conspiracies, the threats, and the rise. Now Barron Trump stood before a podium, not in a college auditorium or on a YouTube livestream, but at the Ronald Reagan Presidential Library in California. The location had been carefully chosen. Symbolic. Bold. The audience was packed. Journalists. Veterans. Celebrities. Entrepreneurs. Even a few former critics now curious. Outside, massive screens showed his face as the world watched live. Streaming platforms crashed under the volume of viewers. People from every political stripe tuned in. No one knew what he would say. He stepped up, dressed sharply in a navy blue suit, no teleprompter in sight. He cleared his throat, looked out, and spoke. "My name is Barron William Trump. And for a long time, I didn't want a stage. I didn't want fame. I didn't want politics. I just wanted peace." The audience was still. But I've learned something: when you're given a voice, you either use it or someone else uses it for you. He paused, took a breath. "So today I'm making something clear, not because I want power, but because I believe my generation is desperate for truth, strength, and authenticity." He looked directly into the cameras. "I'm not running for office yet, but I am launching something bigger. A new national movement, American Reclaim." Gasps filled the room. Phones lit up. Twitter, now X, exploded in real time. It's not a party. It's not left or right. It's a coalition of students, workers, veterans, and forgotten Americans who believe we can stand up to the mob, speak truth, and restore dignity without apology. He continued, his voice steady, rising. "We've allowed bullies on social media, in academia, in media, and in politics to dominate our culture. But the American spirit doesn't bow. It doesn't whimper. It fights. And it wins." By now, the crowd was clapping. Some stood. Others wiped tears. I was bullied. Publicly. They mocked my family, my voice, my face. But I didn't break. I stood. And now I'm inviting you to stand with me. The screen behind him lit up with the American Reclaim emblem, a minimalist torch, glowing red, white, and blue. Not with violence. Not with hate. But with strength, truth, and courage. He ended with words that would later be printed on t-shirts, murals, and even tattoos. They thought I was weak. They thought I would fold. They were wrong. I'm not just my father's son. I'm an unstoppable fighter. The crowd erupted. People rose from their seats in thunderous applause. Military veterans saluted. Students cheered. Parents cried. News anchors, stunned, were at a loss. This may be the most powerful youth movement America has seen in decades, one CNN analyst reluctantly admitted. He's not just defending himself anymore. He's defining the future, added a Fox News commentator. Within weeks, American Reclaim had chapters in every state. Universities that once mocked him now invited him to speak. Inner-city schools requested mentorship programs. Donations poured in, not from billionaires, but from truckers, waitresses, plumbers, teachers. Even foreign leaders mentioned him in speeches. The young Trump has sparked something, said a British MP, a quiet storm of reason and resilience. The original bullies? Forgotten. Max, the protest leader, now worked a minimum wage job, his face a cautionary meme. Activist pundits tried to spin lies, but they fell flat. Why? Because Barron didn't just talk. He walked it. Every day. With humility. With discipline. With heart. He visited shelters. Sat with veterans. Donated anonymously to small-town schools. Met with grieving families and offered no cameras, just comfort. He showed America what real strength looked like, not in shouting, but in standing. Not in rage, but in resolve. And the nation took notice. A year after launching American Reclaim, Barron was invited to deliver the commencement speech at West Point. He ended it with just one sentence. The world may try to knock you down, but if you stand with truth, nothing can stop you. The crowd roared. Cadets saluted. And as he walked off the stage, a chant began. USA! USA! Barron! Barron! A decade later, history books would reflect on this time as the beginning of a quiet revolution. Not of politics, but of character. Of a young man who was bullied, underestimated, and mocked, but who stood up, spoke out, and changed the course of a generation. Barron Trump didn't ask for the fight. But when it came, he proved to America and the world that he was an unstoppable fighter.